The whole school was laughing at me. My aptitude ranked at the bottom, and my campus belle girlfriend dumped me on the spot. I silently walked into the wilderness zone, and one fireball exploded for 887 damage. The highest HP of novice monsters was only 300. The Dean of Discipline stared at the surveillance screen, his hands trembling. Clearing out half the wilderness zone in 2 hours. Who the hell is this? And I had just reached level 2 when the system gave me another tenfold affix. Lu Rian stood in front of me, her chin slightly raised, her tone brimming with barely concealed superiority. And bye, let's break up. My aptitude test score is 9.6, and I'm a third-tier ice and snow mage. Your mage aptitude is only 3.1. You'll only ever be a spell apprentice for the rest of your life. You're not worthy of me anymore. The expressions of the students around us were quite something. Mocking, pitying, gloating. Everything. Those few suitors of Lu Rian's were even less restrained, laughing out loud without a hint of concealment. Honestly, I had seen this coming 3 years ago. From the first day I met Lu Rian. I knew she was this kind of person. The only reason I still stayed with her was that her looks really were pretty. Anyway, for these 3 years I had completely crushed her, so I had gotten my money's worth. Fine. I walked past her expressionlessly. Stop blocking the way. I need to go change classes. Lu Rian froze on the spot, and the look of certain victory on her face collapsed instantly. She had probably imagined that I would cry, make a scene, and threaten suicide, then kneel on the ground hugging her leg and beg her to stay. After all, she was a genius now, a favored daughter of heaven, and everyone ought to fawn over her. Homeroom teacher Wang Qinghai saw me in the class change hall and started his earnest persuasion again. And bye, you need to think this through. With a mage aptitude of 3.1, no faction will be willing to train you, and you won't even be able to afford skill books. Better to switch to a life profession. At least then you can live a stable life. I stepped onto the teleportation platform and smiled at him. Teacher Wang, I've made up my mind. He sighed and set the mage class stone into the control console. A bluish cyan light covered my whole body, and the system notification sounded one after another. Changing class. Class change successful. Spell apprentice. Learned initial skill, basic fireball. Wang Qinghai's expression was full of another misguided youth gone astray. But I couldn't help smiling. Because a voice that only I could hear exploded in my mind. System activation conditions met. Congratulations, host, on successfully binding to the skill affix system. It's here. I waited for you for a full 18 years. My cheat, finally online. This system is simple and crude. Every time I level up, I can draw one golden legendary affix and load it onto any skill to grant it an extra overpowered effect. And it won't change the skill zone cost or cooldown. It's a pure free upgrade. I opened my status panel and glanced at it. Physique 4, Agility 3, Spirit 7. My only skill was basic fireball, with damage of 10 plus 10% spirit, and a 1% chance to inflict burn. My spirit wasn't even 10, so converted out, the damage from one fireball wasn't even enough to scratch a monster. Without the system, this account of mine really would be considered a lost cause. A genius like Lu Rian with a score above 9 would start with at least 30 spirit, and the skill she mastered definitely wouldn't be something like basic fireball. Her looking down on me was, from a stats perspective, completely justified. But now, system draw? A golden stream of light swept through my sea of consciousness, burning all the way from white, green, and blue to purple and orange, before finally stopping at a dazzling gold. Draw successful. Congratulations on obtaining the golden legendary skill affix, Explosion. Explosion? It sounds pretty ordinary, but something of golden quality couldn't possibly be simple. I loaded the affix onto basic fireball, and the skill description instantly changed. After the fireball hits, it triggers an area explosion, with explosion damage increased by 10 to 100 times, decreasing from the center to the outer edge. 100 times damage. A direct hit at the core instantly deals over 1,000 points of damage. Even the tankiest newbie monsters only have 200 or 300 HP, so they simply can't withstand it. I took the mass-produced staff and bulk-made robe issued by the school and headed straight for the wild area in the back mountain. A bunch of people in the entrance plaza saw me, and their expressions immediately turned subtle. As the top liberal arts student at Rongqing No. 1 High School, plus the story of me being dumped by the school-belle today, I'm the center of attention wherever I go now. And bye? You really did switch to mage? Don't tell me you got dumped and it messed with your head? I couldn't be bothered to respond and walked straight ahead. But after only 2 steps, another familiar figure blocked my path. Lu Rian. She had already changed into the deluxe equipment the school gives to outstanding newcomers, an azure ice element robe, long hair flowing, and a staff that radiated the cold aura of high-end gear. A circle of eager simps surrounded her, every one of them wanting to show off in front of her. And by? Her beautiful eyes narrowed. Are you following me? Huh. I was almost amused by that leap of logic. Then why are you coming this way toward me? She looked completely certain. I know you want to team up with me, but I'm a third-tier ice mage, and you're just the lowest level spell apprentice. You'd only slow down my leveling speed. There's no happiness in forcing it. I rolled my eyes. Do you realize you're blocking the entrance to the wild area? Why did I never notice before that this woman was all boobs and no brains? Oh right, before this I really had only noticed the first half. I walked right past her and entered the wild area. The wild area in the school's back mountain was filled with captive ferocious beasts, none above level 5. And most of them were low aggression small fry. I jogged all the way in, deliberately making noise, and soon drew out a pack of ferocious beasts. Long-legged rabbits, fluffy sheep, tusk boars. More than a dozen charged at me, afraid that if they ran too slowly they wouldn't get their share of this fat piece of meat delivered to their mouths. Just what I wanted. I swung my staff, and a fireball drifted out slowly. A long-legged rabbit nimbly hopped to the side and easily dodged the trajectory. That's the awkward thing about low-level mages. Their skill projectiles are painfully slow, and without melee classes to cooperate, it's hard to land a hit. This rabbit was experienced. After dodging, it immediately bounced toward me, probably thinking the 2 or 3 second skill downtime was enough to kill me. Then the fireball behind it hit the ground. Boom! There was a loud explosion, and a heat wave swept in from behind. That long-legged rabbit didn't even have time to turn around before it was completely swallowed by the flames. A damage number popped up, 887. One cast of fireball, and this rabbit would still owe me 9 lives. The corners of my mouth lifted. The explosion radius was about 10 meters, and for every meter outward, the damage multiplier dropped by tenfold. The rabbit had jumped 2 meters away, so it had taken about 80 times damage. But even standing at the edge, 10 times damage was still enough to one-shot these newbie monsters. And that was only the first shot. I kept going deeper in. Each time, I lured a group of monsters to chase me, then turned around and sent them all off with one fireball. In less than 10 minutes, my experience bar had passed 1/4. At a normal beginner's pace, reaching level 2 would take at least a whole day. Even a genius like Lu Ruyan would need more than half a day. Half an hour later, a ray of white light rose from my body. I leveled up. Triggered basic class passive, all attributes +1. Triggered mage beginner passive, spirit +3 extra. More importantly, now I can draw another trait. System, start the draw. Draw successful. Congratulations, you have obtained the golden legendary skill trait, Explosion. My smile froze. Why is it Explosion again? Could it be this system only has this one trait? But the prompt didn't stop, and the golden light kept flashing. Duplicate trait detected from draw. You have been granted 1 extra draw opportunity. Draw successful. Congratulations, you have obtained the golden legendary skill trait, Tenfold. My eyes lit up. Drawing a duplicate even gives a free extra try? This system is way too generous. With 2 traits in hand, I first stacked the second explosion onto Fireball. The effect underwent a direct qualitative transformation, not 1+1, but multiplicative scaling. The damage range went from 30 times to 300 times, and the core damage skyrocketed to over 3,000. Forget newbie monsters. Even elite monsters can be instantly killed for you to see. Then I looked at the Tenfold modifier, just about to stack it on a fireball, when my fingers suddenly stopped in midair. Wait, who says my only skill is basic fireball? Passive skills are skills too. The basic class gives +1 to all attributes per level, and mage initiation gives +3 spirit per level. If I attach Tenfold to the passive, then every level up gives +10 to all attributes, and 3 level ups would equal someone else's 30 levels. Once attributes are higher, skill damage naturally rises with the tide, and it's a permanent, all-around improvement. The burst of a single skill can't compare to the crushing advantage of overall attributes. I made the decision in 3 seconds and attached the Tenfold modifier to the basic class passive. From now on, every time I level up, physique, agility, and spirit each increase by 10 points. This is what it truly means to defy fate and change my destiny. Meanwhile, at the entrance to the back mountain, Director of Studies Li Feng was frowning as he stared fixedly at the monitoring screen. He was in charge of managing the back mountain wilderness zone, and the screen displayed real-time changes in the ferocious beast's data. Something's wrong, very wrong, he muttered to himself. The theory class teacher beside him leaned over for a look. What's wrong, Director Li? Isn't it normal for the number of ferocious beasts to drop quickly? There are more than 120 students changing to combat classes this year. If they all start exerting themselves at the same time, doesn't that line up? Li Feng swept him with a look as if he were an idiot, and pointed at several key lines of data on the screen. Look more carefully. This is the remaining number of level 3 and level 4 ferocious beasts. How long has it been now? Less than 2 hours. In theory, at most no more than 3 students should have reached level 2 by now. Someone who can hunt and kill large numbers of level 3 and level 4 ferocious beasts across levels within 2 hours simply does not exist. His finger continued sliding across the screen, and the data jumped again. This time, even the level 5 ferocious beast category began showing cliff-like drops by dozens at a time. Level 3 ferocious beasts, level 4 ferocious beasts, level 5 ferocious beasts. They were all being wiped out at an unbelievable speed. This is absolutely not something a normal newbie could do. Even Lu Ruyan, a third-tier frost mage, focused mainly on control in the early stage and didn't possess this kind of large-scale instant kill capability. Zhang Qi, a second-tier berserker, had high enough output, but he could only chop them down one by one. Lu Yufei, the third-tier shadow assassin, could kill across levels one-on-one, but there's no way he could take down so many at once. Li Feng took a deep breath, a certain excitement suppressed in his voice, and said to the teacher beside him, "Pull up the list of everyone with aptitude above 6 points this year and recheck every single one of them for me." His gaze remained fixed on the numbers still jumping on the screen. As he softly said that sentence, there must be an unexpected surprise hidden among them that we don't know about. Successfully killed 74 ferocious beasts, current EXP, 100%. Congratulations, you have reached level 4. Triggered basic class passive, all attributes +10. Triggered mage initiation passive, spirit, +3. Consumed 1 chance, drawing golden modifier. Draw successful. Congratulations, you have obtained a golden legendary skill modifier. No wind-up. No cooldown. With a single fireball, over 50 ferocious beasts were blown to death, and Imbai leveled up once again. At the same time, he also drew the 2 golden modifiers brought by levels 3 and 4 respectively. Sure enough, there are still more monsters in the deepest part of the back mountain. Going from level 2 to level 3 took 50 minutes, but going from level 3 to level 4 only took half an hour instead. It was mostly because of the time spent running back and forth to pull monsters. And one of the reasons Imbai had to keep gathering monsters before killing them was that casting skills required a wind-up and cooldown. Although they weren't very long, it still took roughly around 3 seconds to cast a second fireball. Although the explosion range was a full 30 meters, Imbai still had trouble dealing with monsters if they were too spread out. But now, the modifiers he just drew twice happened to solve this problem for him. Beginner Fireball LV2 summons a fireball to attack, with a 1% chance to burn the enemy. Damage is 20 plus 10% spirit. Explosion *2. After the fireball hits, it creates a large area explosion effect, increasing explosion damage by 30 to 300 times, gradually weakening from the core to the outer edge. This skill now has no cast wind-up and no cooldown, so he can basically cast fireball continuously without interruption. The only remaining concern is whether his spirit will be enough. However, because his growth attributes have also improved, for a low-consumption skill like Beginner Fireball, it basically doesn't count as much of a drain. At the same time, constantly using skills will also increase the skill's proficiency level. His Beginner Fireball had also increased by 1 level, with its base damage going from 10 points to 20 points. It may not seem like much of an improvement, but after all, with the explosion modifier, the actual damage increase is extremely high. Then Imbai glanced at his current status panel again. Name, Imbai level, 4, 9%. Class, Spell Apprentice, Physique, 25, Agility, 24, Spirit, 37, Elemental Affinity. None class skill. Beginner Fireball LV2, Explosion *2, no cooldown, no wind-up. Other skills, none class passive. Basic class, Tenfold, Mage Initiation Modifier System. Can draw 0 times his 3-dimensional attributes were simply worlds apart from the beginning. His spirit was nearly 40 points. Although repeatedly casting Beginner Fireball would gradually increase the consumption, he could now still withstand casting 10 of them in one go. If he cast them intermittently in succession, firing off 30 fireballs would be no problem. The current Imbai could completely swagger through the wilderness. He no longer needed to carefully lure monsters like at the beginning. Instead, he started sprinting through the wilderness. Whenever he saw small groups of monsters standing relatively close together in the wild, he no longer had to worry about spirit consumption and would just throw a fireball straight at them. But it seemed that there were no longer as many monsters on the back mountain as before, and they were getting slower and slower to find. After running around for a short while, Umbai looked at the hillside he had almost completely blasted over, and realized he could no longer find any more wild monsters. But by this point, his experience bar had also reached 70%, and after killing for a little longer, he would probably be able to reach level 5. He should hurry up and reach level 5, then go to the dungeon hall in the city to farm dungeons. However, the minimum requirement for dungeons is also level 5. Otherwise, entry is not allowed. With my current speed of leveling up and growing stronger, reaching level 10 within 2 weeks can practically be said to be effortless, and passing the assessment for a higher academy should be no problem. As Umbai threw fireballs, he considered what to do afterward. For combat professionals, aside from being a complete lone wolf, there are 2 paths to choose from. Either join a guild faction or join a higher academy. Guild factions are generally established in dependence on towns, and they possess relatively great influence and power in their local towns. Many wilderness areas outside the city that contain valuable resources are divided up and occupied by different guilds. At the very least, resources that can be obtained easily are basically controlled by the guilds. On the other hand, there is the university route, that is, the higher academies. However, the universities in this world are not schools like those before transmigration. First of all, the most core point is that the higher academies here are not places for studying at all. After all, once one becomes a combat professional, the most important way to learn is simply through constant real combat. Higher academies are also one type of major power, but compared with guilds, they are more free and have fewer restrictions. The most important point is that all higher academies mean that each of them controls an entrance to an abyss. They also serve as transit stations for humanity's fight against the abyss, places connected to the front lines. Higher academies control many leveling resources, grinding resources, as well as abyss resources. Of course, corresponding to that are responsibilities and obligations, along with the accompanying dangers and opportunities. After entering a higher academy, you can obtain a large amount of resources for growth and development. But unlike guilds, which are basically a lifelong contract of servitude, in a higher academy, however many resources you obtain, how many years of defense service will be required afterward, or how many monsters must be killed in the abyss? Everything is an open and transparent transaction. But for all truly powerful combat class professionals, the abyss is an unavoidable place. The resources in the abyss are far more abundant and vastly better than the wild zone resources that spawn on Blue Star. Hundreds or even thousands of times better. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Minus 6,905. Minus 5,850. Minus 4,675. Successfully killed 32 ferocious beasts. Current EXP, 100%. Congratulations, you have leveled up by 5 levels and unlocked the second class exclusive skill slot. Base class passive triggered, all attributes plus 10. Mage initiate passive triggered, spirit plus 3. After clearing out most of the ferocious beasts on another hill, Umbai finally got his wish and reached level 5. Time to draw. As Umbai turned and walked toward the exit, he began clicking on the newly obtained entry draw. Give me a duplicate, give me a duplicate, give me a duplicate. Consumed 1 chance, drawing a golden entry. Draw successful. Congratulations on obtaining the golden legendary grade skill entry. Corpse explosion. Unfortunately, it missed, and he didn't get a duplicate. Sure enough, the probability of freeloading an extra entry was a bit low. Corpse explosion? Isn't that a very famous skill in the Necromancer line? I actually drew it as an entry. Umbai looked at his new entry in some surprise. And without a doubt, it was also one that could only be paired with the Fireball skill. Otherwise, if it were given to the 2 passives triggered by leveling up, Umbai suspected that every level up might increase the power of Corpse Explosion once, and it would only trigger his corpse's self-detonation when he actually died. What a joke. Being alive is all about staying alive forever. So let other people's corpses explode instead. Basic Fireball summons a fireball to attack, with a 1% chance to burn the enemy, dealing damage equal to 10 plus 10% spirit. After the fireball hits, it creates a large area explosion effect, with explosion damage increased by 30 to 300 times, gradually weakening from the core to the outer edge. This skill has no cast wind-up and no need to wait for cooldown. Enemies killed by this skill will have their corpses explode, dealing damage equal to max HP plus attack power of the hit they received. Truly worthy of the golden entry corpse explosion. It is said that even the necromancer's corpse explosion can only blow up 1/3 of the corpse's original HP. Unexpectedly, this not only explodes for the full amount of HP, but even adds the attack power damage it suffered before death. For low-level ferocious beasts, that bit of HP damage from the explosion is insignificant. Instead, adding the attack power they suffered before death is equivalent to making my fireball explode twice. Of course, the second corpse explosion doesn't have the 30-meter blast radius of fireball itself. It mainly depends on the size of the corpse. Relying on his fairly high agility attribute, Mbai quickly returned to the entrance of the back mountain. The moment he came out, his attention was drawn to the situation by the monitoring station. Because besides Director Lee, who was in charge of monitoring, the homeroom teachers responsible for this year's 10 senior year classes were all gathered there. Even the old principal had come in person. All the teachers were staring in the direction of the exit. And at the same time, Director Lee was holding the class rosters of several classes for comparison. Whenever he saw someone come out, he would lower his head to check the list in his hand and occasionally wave someone over. But by now, since the start, an entire morning had already passed. Aside from Mbai, quite a few people had also been coming out of the back mountain one after another, getting ready to take a break, eat lunch, and then continue grinding. So Mbai coming out so quickly didn't attract much attention. Even when his homeroom teacher Wang Qinghai saw him, the two merely exchanged a glance and nodded in greeting. Then Wang Qinghai shifted his gaze away and continued staring at the others coming out behind Mbai. Keep your eyes peeled for me. Check the students in your respective classes with aptitude scores above 6 points, and pay more attention to their level progress. See if any of them have reached level 3 or above. Also pay close attention to people who come out in teams. The most likely explanation for this situation is that among this year's freshmen, the strongest group reached a cooperation agreement and directly teamed up to kill monsters together. Otherwise, there's no way to explain it. How could so many level 4 and 5 ferocious beasts have died in such a short time? After discussing it, Director Lee and the old principal and the others concluded that the only possible explanation was teaming up, and it must have been the strongest group joining forces together. So many teachers present all accepted this possibility and never even considered that this could be a single person's achievement. And precisely because of that, when they saw that it wasn't by coming out, and that he was coming out alone, these teachers couldn't even be bothered to use appraisal and skipped right past him. Meanwhile, after leaving school, Mbai casually grabbed some fast food nearby. As an orphan, he was indeed rather strapped financially in daily life. Previously, in order to make things convenient with Lu Ruyan, and also for the convenience of his own daily life, he had used the scholarship he earned through his excellent theory class grades to rent a place. Although it wasn't big, it was at least much better than staying at the orphanage. After eating, on his way to the dungeon hall, he stopped by the skill shop for a look. But after just one glance, he immediately ran off. The mage class really is a money pit. Even the lowest level basic class exclusive skill book for a mage actually cost a full 1,000 yuan. Not to mention those first tier and second tier class exclusive skill books, which start at 30,000 to 50,000. 100,000 is considered trash, 500,000 is barely acceptable, and only skills costing over 1 million are ones a true archmage would consider. Although he had reached level 5 and unlocked a new exclusive skill slot, Mbai thought about it and decided to forget it. He simply had no spare money at all. After jogging all the way for 20 minutes, he finally arrived at the Adventurers Association building in eastern Shangjiang City. He directly stepped into the dungeon hall inside. This was his destination. "Hello, I'd like to apply for a dungeon card." Mbai walked up to the front desk, found the receptionist there, and said it bluntly. Hearing this, the receptionist looked up, her eyes clearly showing surprise. "Apply for a card? Are you a freshman who awakened today?" Because every year's class transfer day is the same. And likewise, only during the first month after class transfer day each year do people gradually come to apply for dungeon cards. Other than that, veteran class holders basically have no need to get a new card. For some reason, the moment this receptionist spoke, Mbai felt dozens of gazes fall on him. Although Mbai was a little puzzled, he didn't pay it much mind. After all, this was still inside the city, where infighting between combat class holders was prohibited. Unless you paid to go to an official arena, it would all be considered illegal, and you'd be arrested and taught a lesson by the law enforcers. Yes, tell me which high school you're from, as well as your class type. Fill in the information on this form, and then pay 10,000 yuan. Number 1 high school mage. As Mbai took the form, he also reported his information. Woohoo! Haha damn. Suddenly, loud commotion erupted from several places in the hall. Some people laughed and clapped, while others cursed and pounded the table, startling even in Bai. What the hell? It was as scary as a ferocious beast invasion. Ha ha ha. Nicely done, little brother. Seriously impressive. Already level 5 so fast. Enough to start running dungeons. No wonder you're from number 1 high school. Come to think of it, I'm a number 1 high school graduate too, hee hee. Since we're so fated. Come. These 3 bottles of basic recovery potion are for you, Wallenbai had handed in the form and paid the money, and was sitting to the side waiting. A scruffy uncle carrying a greatsword walked toward him. You guys are gambling? Realizing it only belatedly, and Bai finally began to understand a little. So these people were actually betting on which high school this year's rookie professional who came to the dungeon hall first to get a card was from. Haha, little brother, don't mind it. After all, aside from grinding monsters, we usually don't have anything else to do. This is the only time each year we get to enjoy some fun and make a little extra cash on the side. We're betting here to see whether the first one to come to the dungeon hall for a card this year is from number 1 high, number 2 high, or the private Shuelon High School. Some also bet on what class the first person will be. Haha, I got lucky. I bet on a mage from number 1 high, and I got it all right. Seeing that Mbai was also from number 1 high, this bearded uncle felt they were quite fated and chatted with him enthusiastically. And since Mbai still needed some time to wait for his information to be entered and the card processed, he didn't mind asking around for more news. It's fine, uncle, thanks for the red potions. Mbai accepted the 3 basic healing potions without ceremony. Although they were common items, each bottle was worth 200 yuan. Even though 200 wasn't considered much money to any professional. At least for Mbai at this moment, after paying the fee for the dungeon card and setting aside 1,000 for this month's rent and living expenses, he was completely broke. So broke that he couldn't bear to buy even a single bottle of medicine. You uncle? Little brother, that's too much. I only graduated the year before last. Mbai widened his eyes. Graduated the year before last, which means 20 years old, broad-shouldered and thick-waisted, dark-skinned, scruffy beard, sloppy appearance. This F******** ing counts as 20 years old? Yeah, big bro, hello? My name is Zhao Ruetian. I'm a greatsword warrior. Although I didn't get into college, I'm doing pretty well in the city. Little brother, if you need power leveling or material farming or anything like that, you can come to me. The price is negotiable. After introducing himself, Zhao Ruetian casually promoted his business. But obviously he had picked the wrong person, because the one in front of him was a pauper. Alright then, brother Zhao. As Mbai spoke, he took the dungeon card handed over by the front desk receptionist. Just as he was about to say goodbye and leave, a thought suddenly occurred to him. Right, brother Zhao. Besides betting on who comes first to get a card, do you have any other kinds of bets? Zhao Ruetian smiled and said, of course, for example, betting on what a freshman will choose for their first run, whether they can clear it, the challenge time, and so on. However, since I've already come over to talk with you, at least those old hands won't bet with me on these, because they're worried you and I might collude to scam their money. To be fair, Mbai really did have that idea, but clearly the others were no fools either. Brother Zhao, I have an idea. Since they don't dare open a pool because they're afraid of getting scammed, then how about you open the pool yourself, brother? Mbai asked. Zhao Ruetian said doubtfully. Little brother, are you sure if I open the pool they'll place bets? By the way, what are you planning to bet on? Mbai said, bet that I can clear my first dungeon. Set the odds at 1 to 10. This. Little brother, something like clearing a dungeon is too easy to manipulate. They won't believe it. Zhao Ruetian didn't agree right away. But what if? It's soloing an inferno dungeon? Whoosh. As soon as those words came out, Zhao Ruetian was struck dumb. Indeed, if it were an ordinary normal dungeon, whether someone wanted to clear it or not could be manipulated behind the scenes. But if it was an inferno dungeon, then it was no longer a simple matter of manipulation. Even going all out, victory still wasn't guaranteed. With that, Zhao Ruetian understood what the so-called 1 to 10 odds meant. It definitely meant that a bet on clearing would pay 1 to 10. But no matter how high the payout was, only a very small number of people would believe Mbai could succeed solo. Most people would bet that Mbai could not clear it. A little. Ahem, brother, there are quite a lot of people here who want to play. When the time comes, the stakes might be 3 to 500,000. Do you really think that's okay? By the way, I don't know what to call you, brother. Before he knew it, Zhao Ruetian had involuntarily started using honorifics with Mbai. Mbai turned around calmly and lightly left behind a sentence. In family of Shangjiang City, Mbai. Go handle it properly for me, and there'll be benefits in it for you. No problem. It really was Shanjiang City, and it really was the Yin family. Although the whole family only had him by himself. The Yin family? But in Zhao Ruetian's view, this way of introducing oneself was quite extraordinary. He frantically ran through information about Shanjiang City in his mind, but it seemed he had never heard of the Yin family. However, Zhao Ruetian did not become suspicious because of this. Instead, he felt that it must be because his own understanding was insufficient. After all, he had always only been active around the dungeon hall in the east of the city, and had never deliberately learned about many things. Of course, the 2 points that made Zhao Ruetian trust him most were, first, that Anbai, as the first person to come open a card this year, had already proven his strength. The second point was that Anbai was a mage class. As everyone knows, mages are the most money-burning. 3 to 500,000 to a mage lord is basically not money at all. Thinking of this, Zhao Ruetian said no more and firmly believed in Bai's words. At the same time, he was extremely excited inside. This was someone from a big family, and just happened to be his junior schoolmate. This was a future big shot to lean on, and he had to hold on tight while he could. Haha, I'm about to rise straight to the top. Come, brothers, betting's open. Not long after, Zhao Ruetian returned to those class holders and started shouting, telling everyone about it. What the hell, going straight for a purgatory dungeon. 1 pays 10? Ha ha. Old Zhao, your brain must be broken too. Even if it were 1 pays 100, it'd still be a pure loss. There's no way this can be cleared. Exactly, a level 5 dungeon on purgatory difficulty. Among all current records, not a single one was cleared at level 5. The lowest one was only cleared at level 7. Old Zhao, you aren't bluffing and trying to use these huge odds to trick us into betting on him clearing it, are you? TCH, I'm not falling for that, and the odds for betting on not clearing it are actually 1.5. You really are a great philanthropist. I'm in, I'll bet 5,000. Damn it, I just lost 10,000 betting on the school. Now I'm going to win it back. Put down 50,000 for me. Old Zhao, when the time comes you'd better admit the loss and honor the bet, or I'll go cause trouble for the brotherhood behind you. While collecting everyone's money and registering the bets, Zhao Ruetian spread his mouth into a warm smile and said, "Don't worry, absolutely fair to young and old alike." But the next moment, his smile stiffened somewhat. Because on that dungeon information everyone was watching, a dungeon that had not been seen for a long time suddenly lit up brightly. Dungeon, Remnants of the Insect Emperor LV5, Purgatory difficulty. Number of challengers, 1. Holy shit. Why did he choose this? The hardest one among all level 5 dungeons. Fuck, could it be that Brotherin's hand slipped and he clicked the wrong one? Zhao Ruetian stared wide-eyed at the information on the screen, but the others burst into excited laughter instead. Ha 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 ha. Old Zhao, this time you're going to lose even your underwear. Raise my bet, I want to add another 50,000. After registering with the dungeon card, and by then opened the dungeon entrance and entered the dungeon world. This was an incomparably desolate great plain, and under his feet seemed to be the remains of a village. Everything looked ruined and lonely. But the moment he came in, he noticed large patches of black dots in the distant sky. Without a doubt, those were the dungeon's main enemies. Dungeon challenge begins. Mission 1, normal survive for 8 hours. Mission 2, high difficulty while completing Mission 1. Kill 300 golden winged insects and 300 azure winged insects. Mission 3, nightmare while completing Mission 2. Kill the golden winged insect general and the azure winged insect general. Mission 4, purgatory burn down the insect nest and survive. Very quickly, the missions for all 4 difficulty levels were listed out. But for Anbai, he only needed to complete the 4th mission. However, this mission was harder than the first 3 combined. Because once he made a move against the insect nest, the overwhelming swarm of enemies would all lock onto him and attack at the same time. That was why this dungeon had existed for decades, yet no one had cleared the Inferno difficulty to this day. However, for Anbai, this dungeon instead felt like the easiest one. There was no map, and he didn't know where the insect nest was. But that didn't matter. He could just kill while searching and see which direction had more bugs. The nest was probably there. Anbai casually picked a direction, and after only walking several dozen steps, he was attacked by a group of golden wing bugs. These bug monsters never moved alone. Any action they took was always in groups of at least 10. Golden wing bug LV7, Inferno buff bonus HP 680, attack 60, defense 90. The body of a golden wing bug was about half a meter long. Its spread wings and shell both had a metallic sheen, clearly marking it as a defense-oriented type, and its flying speed was also extremely fast. The moment it saw him by, more than 10 golden wing bugs immediately bared their forelimbs tipped with metallic spikes and lunged at him. And by showed not the slightest panic. Without making any movement at all, a fireball had already formed in front of him and flew toward the golden wing bugs. Boom, 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 boom. Obviously, with the golden wing bugs packed so densely, there was no room for them to dodge the fireball. At the instant it hit with ease, the flames exploded and directly engulfed this entire wave of incoming golden wing bugs. Minus 7,495, minus 8,110, minus 6,954, minus 7,551. Easily killed in seconds. With the explosion and corpse explosion, all the golden wing bugs would burst out with damage twice. Once to blow themselves up, and once to blow up the other nearby bugs. And after the other bugs died, they would continue exploding as well. There was simply no way any would slip through the net. However, unlike killing in the real world, kills in a dungeon brought no gains at all. Dungeon rewards were distributed all at once after clearing the dungeon. After all, dungeons were special existences. They were artificially created small worlds modeled after the secret realm pocket worlds that appeared after the Abyss invaded Blue Star. They were made into the dungeons of today by spatial mages or spatial type items, either by cutting out parts of wilderness zones, sealing them, and bringing them back, or by directly copying secret realm worlds and then processing them. All the fierce beasts inside were recreated through special spatial laws while retaining part of the secret realm's rules. They were not real life forms, so killing them gave no experience. However, after clearing a dungeon, one could obtain a large amount of clear experience and other rewards all at once. And compared with wilderness zones and secret realms, dungeons had another advantage. There was no need to worry about dying. Because at the instant of near death, one would automatically be teleported out. Although injuries were unavoidable, at least it could save your life. Of course, accidents did happen, and being completely killed at the same time as teleportation was not unheard of. But those were, after all, rare cases. So quite a few people were still willing to spend money to farm dungeons. After seeing that his skills could still perform perfectly in this dungeon, Anbai was completely reassured and began to speed up. A swarm of green wing bugs appeared. Green wing bug LV7. Inferno buff bonus HP 380. Attack 160. Defense 60. In contrast to the golden wing bugs, the green wing bugs had much lower HP and defense, but their attack power was more than double that of the golden wing bugs. However, fireball. Boom, boom, boom. A large swarm of green wing bugs turned to ashes and dissipated. Honestly, if he really got mobbed by these swarms, Anbai felt he would still be in quite a bit of danger. Although he had 10 times growth attributes, he still hadn't fully grown yet, and his physique was still under 40 points. Converted into HP, it was probably only around 400. Of course, the vitality and offense-defense attributes of human class users are not as straightforward as those of wild monsters. This is because one special thing about human class users is that monsters are treated as a whole. Even just giving a monster a pedicure can kill it. Humans are different. Even if you launch an attack with a god-tier skill, if you only attack his hand, then barring other factors, he would only lose one hand, and it would not be life-threatening. But on the other hand, if a human's vital parts, such as the heart, head, neck, and so on, suffer heavy damage, it will cause much more serious harm and may even directly threaten their life. In addition, with physique attributes, aside from people like Anbai who are relatively well-balanced, some focus on strength, some focus on physique, and the defense they gain is also different, not to mention the boosts from various equipment, skills, and items. Therefore, it is impossible to directly calculate an accurate HP, attack, and defense for humans. Even appraisal can only see level data and class rank. And beyond that, one can only rely on experience to judge a person's strength. Just like that Zhao Ruetian, who judged from experience that Anbai was a mage, so he had to be rich and powerful. But now he couldn't help praying inwardly as well. Brotherin, you absolutely must clear it. Before he knew it, the bets had already reached 300,000. And even though he knew the great families might not care about this bit of money, Zhao Ruetian still worried about offending them. If one of them got unhappy and came looking for trouble, he'd be done for. Zhao Ruetian stared fixedly at the screen, but unfortunately, the progress couldn't be seen here, so he could only wait silently for news. Although the others present were somewhat nervous too, they were even more excited, already thinking about where to go for a big meal after winning a large sum of money. So this is the insect nest? On the other side, After Inbai had the bad luck of choosing the wrong direction twice, he finally found that so-called insect nest. It was a gigantic bottomless pit, and at the very bottom countless swarms of insects were wrapped around an oval black nest. Countless insects moved in and out of it. Anyone with trypophobia would probably have been scared to death several times over. Since they're this densely packed, it actually saves me trouble. Another fireball. Boom! At the instant the huge explosion rang out, countless insects raised their heads and looked toward where Inbai was. At the same time, the distant swarms also flew back at top speed as if their lives depended on it. And all of them charged toward Inbai's position. Blow them all to hell for me. Inbai stood where he was, relying on the affixes of no cooldown and no cast time, and in just a few breaths, he threw more than a dozen fireballs in every direction. The next moment, a fireworks feast. Dungeon Hall broadcast announcement. Congratulations! Someone has cleared the level 5 dungeon remnants of the Insect Emperor on Purgatory difficulty and set a new record. Dungeon Hall broadcast announcement. Congratulations! Someone has cleared the level 5 dungeon remnants of the Insect Emperor on Purgatory difficulty and set a new record. Dungeon Hall broadcast announcement. Congratulations! Someone has cleared the level 5 dungeon remnants of the Insect Emperor on Purgatory difficulty and set a new record. All the loudspeakers in the dungeon hall sounded at the same time. The news of the clear echoed in the ears of every class user in the hall. Whether it was the receptionists at the front desk or the adventurers wandering around the hall, everyone stopped in their tracks and, as if by prior agreement, looked toward the large screen in the center of the hall. Remnants of the Insect Emperor Dungeon Record Rankings first place, and by LV5 at the time of clearing, Purgatory difficulty, rating SSS, holy shit. The Purgatory difficulty of Remnants of the Insect Emperor was cleared, and by, who is this guy to be this badass? He was only level 5 when he cleared it? Holy shit. I remember that even the record for Nightmare difficulty was cleared at level 8, and only by a multiplayer team, right? Cleared in less than an hour? Even normal difficulty requires surviving for 8 hours. Normally, it wouldn't be strange to spend 1 or 2 days in this dungeon once you enter. Haha, Brother Bai is awesome. Thank you all for your patronage. Among them, Zhao Ruetian was naturally the most excited. Now that he had received the hundreds of thousands of yuan in his hands, he finally felt secure holding it, no longer worried about losing money. Of course, he also knew clearly in his heart that this money did not belong to him, but to Inbai, who had just cleared the dungeon. However, at this moment, he was completely convinced that Inbai was a rising new star of the future. He became more and more grateful that he had impulsively gone to talk to the other party just now. At least now that this connection existed, he would have the inside track when it came to riding his coattails in the future. Inside the dungeon, amid a series of fiery explosions, Inbai completed this dungeon challenge with exceptional ease. Honestly, for him, it had gone almost too smoothly, even more smoothly than imagined. The reason was simple. This dungeon did not even have any units above boss level. The only relatively strong ones were 2 elite insect generals. However, these elites only had around 4 to 5,000 HP. For other people, the reason this dungeon was called the hardest among level 5 dungeons was mainly because of the overwhelming swarms of insects that could not be killed off. So the main objective of this dungeon was survival. But with so many of them and so little HP, to Inbai, every single insect was equivalent to a barrel of explosives. Ignite one, and it would directly set off a chain explosion across a large area. Not to mention that after he blew open the insect nest, these insects, under stress, gathered even more densely and flew over together. This made things even more convenient for Inbai. It was just like setting off fireworks. With continuous roaring sounds beneath the huge pit and high up in the sky, coming from all directions. Yet in the end, only a mere 2 or 3 insects were lucky enough to slip through the gaps between the explosions. But Inbai dealt with them easily as well. Congratulations on clearing the level 5 dungeon remnants of the Insect Emperor on Purgatory difficulty. You have obtained a large amount of EXP and 1 purple dungeon treasure chest. It has been detected that this clear is the first clear of Purgatory difficulty. Additional reward, 1 golden dungeon treasure chest. Congratulations, you have leveled up to level 6. Current EXP 127%. Congratulations, you have leveled up to level 7. Current EXP 27%. Base class passive triggered, all attributes plus 20. Mage beginner passive triggered, spirit plus 6. You have gained 2 affix draw opportunities. As expected of a Purgatory difficulty clear. 1 run, and he leveled up twice in a row. Awesome. Even Inbai was a little excited. After all, this single clear brought him quite a lot. And all he had paid was the 10,000 yuan for the membership card, plus the first of the 3 free daily dungeon entries. Inbai was not in a hurry to leave the dungeon space. He directly brought out the 2 treasure chests rewarded for clearing it right here. Although dungeons were artificially created, they were adapted from wilderness zones or secret realms that already existed, not made completely out of thin air. Therefore, the rewards inside, including the clear treasure chests, actually appeared according to the inherent rules of the wilderness zone or secret realm itself. However, if a dungeon is farmed through too many times, it also needs maintenance, such as adding more common materials. Otherwise, the dungeon will no longer have enough energy to condense treasure chests. This is why entering the dungeon hall requires a membership card, and the membership fee is 10,000 yuan per month, and if you exceed 3 runs a day, you have to pay extra. 1 purple treasure chest and 1 golden treasure chest. It is said that no matter how high the quality of low-level treasure chests is, the good stuff inside is still limited. So I wonder what I can draw. But I heard the rewards for a first clear are always especially high, since the dungeon's energy has not yet been consumed and is at its peak value. And Bai was also somewhat looking forward to it. Then used both hands, left and right, to open the lids of the 2 treasure chests at the same time. Opened purple dungeon treasure chest. You obtain Blood Rage Pills X6, green consumable. Nutrient Potion X3, white consumable. Insect General Hook Claw, purple weapon. Insect Marrow X1216, white material. Insect Emperor Fluid, purple item. Open golden dungeon treasure chest. You obtain the Golden Winged Insect King Specimen, orange item. Azure Winged Insect King Specimen, orange item. Number 81 Purgatory Walker, gold badge. That's quite a lot of stuff. And Bai looked at the 2 treasure chests, each filled to the brim with rewards. There were large amounts of materials and items, including a purple weapon. Unfortunately, it was a gauntlet-type weapon, suitable for a fighter branch under the warrior class after class advancement, so it wasn't suitable for him. The Insect Emperor Fluid, however, was a good thing. After drinking it, one could gain the aura of the Insect Emperor for a short time, avoiding attacks from any insect race, while also being able to command all insect units. As for the 2 Insect King specimens, they could be sold to summoners for use as summoning materials. Of course, what surprised him by the most was still that gold badge. This was a special kind of equipment, extremely difficult to obtain, but its effects were definitely very powerful. Number 81 Purgatory Walker, gold badge, equipment attributes. All attributes plus 10. Growth effect. When all attributes, excluding this equipment, exceed 100/1000/10,000 and beyond, the equipment attributes will also correspondingly increase by 100/1000/10,000 and beyond special effect. After clearing, dungeon base rewards increase by 20% description. Since the Cataclysm era, you are the 81st person to receive this badge. This is a reward given to novice professionals who possess both courage and strength. Good stuff. An all-attribute boost. And it would continue to increase more and more later on, so it could be considered a special growth-type piece of equipment. Without another word, Bai directly put this equipment on. At the same time, he muttered, for a reward with such obvious acquisition conditions, how come no one mentioned it in class before? That's way too unreasonable. Although, judging by the fact that from the Cataclysm until him, there had only been 81 people in total, it really was very difficult. And the conditions were harsh. You had to be level 5, and your first dungeon also had to be the corresponding level 5 dungeon, and it had to be on Purgatory difficulty. Solo, no damage taken, no items used, no consumables used, and no equipment above blue quality. After seeing these conditions, even Inbai couldn't help but click his tongue. But Inbai had misunderstood. The truth was, the school would mention it. It was just that only those with aptitude scores above 9, who had reached level 5 and were preparing to run dungeons, would get a reminder to give it a try. As for Inbai, with his low rating, no one cared about him at all, which was why he had missed this information. Name. And by level, 7, 27%, class, spell apprentice physique, 55, plus 10, agility, 54, plus 10, spirit, 76, plus 10, elemental affinity, non-equipment. Number 81 Purgatory Walker, gold badge, class skills, basic fireball LV2, explosion *2, no cooldown, no wind-up, corpse explosion, other skills, none class passive, basic class, Tenfold, mage initiation entry system, with 2 draws. Available plus the badge's boost, his spirit had already reached 91 points. almost in the triple digits. He could draw 2 more gold entries. Come on, system. Let's draw. Consume 2 chances, drawing gold entries. Draw successful. Congratulations, you obtained the gold legendary skill entries. Flame, teleportation soon. The 2 entries appeared in the entry list. But this time, Ambai felt somewhat conflicted. So speechless, this draw. Flame. But my fireball is already fire elemental. Will adding another flame really make it stronger? As for teleportation, sigh. If only this were a skill itself. Teleportation was universally acknowledged as one of the god-tier skills. No matter the class, everyone longed to get such a skill. And this was even a universal skill. If someone got a teleportation skill book and listed it on the trading house for auction, even a short-range teleport within 1 meter could be bid up to 5 or 6 million. But since it's only an entry, and can't exist independently as a skill, then whatever. After all, the specific effects would only be known after fusing it with a skill. After thinking it over, Ambai decided to put the fire element on basic class. Add blink to basic fireball. Logically, if the fire element affix upgrades basic class, it should probably bring me growth boosts related to that element, right? Whatever, I'll try it first. Basic fireball LV2, omitted. Blink. The fireball will instantly hit a locked target within line of sight. Basic class, Tenfold, flame. All attributes +1 per level, x10. Fire element affinity +10. Increased flame resistance. Reduced consumption and cooldown of fire attribute skills. Increased power. Sure enough, just as he had thought, the growth of basic class gained an additional fire element affinity. Element affinity can grant resistance to the corresponding element and enhance skills of the corresponding element. Unfortunately, affixes cannot interact with each other, so the tenfold affix cannot increase fire element affinity by another 10 times. With fire element affinity, he could cast more fireball spells in succession. And giving the blink affix to fireball just happened to solve one of this skill's most obvious flaws: its slow projectile speed. Now, the fireball doesn't need to fly over at all. It just blinks over and instantly hits the target. Impossible to guard against. Plus, with no casting windup, this meant that Ambai could just stand motionless right in front of the enemy, and the enemy would suddenly explode. The first dungeon run happened to be quick, and there was still plenty of time today. Plus, there were still 2 free runs left, so he might as well clear them all. After packing up the loot, Ambai returned to the dungeon room and did not leave. He directly began selecting other dungeons on the control panel to continue the challenge. But after that, he was much more casual about it. After all the dungeons here were level 5, and the next tier required level 10 or above. And there was a cooldown for entering dungeons, so Ambai casually picked another level 5 dungeon, again chose Purgatory difficulty, and went in. Number 1 High School of Shangjiang City. At the entrance to the back mountain, Zhang Qi, Lu Ruyan, Lu Yufei, and a group of people with relatively high ratings were all called aside. You really didn't team up together to grind monsters? Or did someone's first class skill happen to roll a large area, high damage skill? Director Li was already asking this question for the 3rd time, but the answer he got was still the same. Director, really no. I only teamed up with Tang San, that beast tamer, and Xiao Yin, that fire mage. A large area, high damage skill. Is that really something you can roll from a level 1 starting skill? Hearing this, Director Li sighed and could only wave his hand. Alright, go back to grinding monsters and practicing. Then he turned to the old principal and said, Principal, it seems it really should be a problem with our magic array, which caused those ferocious beasts to start inexplicably killing each other. Bang! Just then, a teacher suddenly ran over in a panic. Principal, this is bad. He had already been in a bad mood because of the possible problem with the back mountain magic array, and seeing a teacher panicking in front of so many students made his mood even worse. What's going on, Xiao Wang? Running around in a panic like this is unbecoming. The one called Xiao Wang froze for a moment after being interrupted, but then, thinking of the news he had heard, he couldn't care less, and hurriedly said, Principal, another school has produced a monster this year, an incredibly strong newcomer. Every school compares the students who changed classes each year, although a large part of it depends on luck. It truly affects the school's reputation, and more importantly, the special education funding approved from above. For the teachers, that's also a considerable bonus. So Xiao Wang hurried over to report the news. What monster? Our school's student Lu Ruyan has an aptitude rating of 9.6. That's just a hair short of a perfect aptitude score. The old principal said displeased. A 9.6 rating could be called a genius among geniuses, although not every genius can be fully developed. Just having that potential is enough to make all the major forces willing to spend money investing in such a promising talent. Principal, listen to me. News has already come from the dungeon hall. By noon, a rookie class holder had already cleared a dungeon. And it was the hardest one, the Insect Emperor Remnants dungeon. They even cleared it on purgatory difficulty. I heard it was cleared in less than an hour. As soon as those words were spoken, all the teachers and the principal present looked utterly stunned. What kind of joke is this? Even the old principal himself back then only managed to clear the Insect Emperor Remnants dungeon after reaching level 9, and that was only on nightmare difficulty. He looked at Lu Ruyan, Lu Yufei, and the others not far away in the plaza. The strongest students at his own school were only around level 2 or 3. Without a doubt, that rookie was a monster from some other school. Damn it. This year's special education funds are gone again. Minus 8,001. Minus 8,625. Successfully killed Elite, Black Iron Knight, LV6. Successfully killed Black Iron Knight, LV5. Successfully killed Elite, Black Iron Archer, LV6. Successfully killed Black Iron Archer, LV5. And by walked through an underground tomb. This was the third level, 5 dungeon he had challenged, called Tomb of the Black Iron King. However, because he had already reached level 7 in his first dungeon, after farming 2 more level 5 dungeons, he still had not leveled up and had only raised his experience to 96%. There weren't swarms of monsters everywhere like in the Insect Emperor Remnants dungeon. Basically, he would only encounter them in 2s and 3s. However, this dungeon had quite a lot of elite monsters. In every wave of enemies, there was at least 1 elite monster. This time, Mbai even encountered 2 elites at once. But they were still instantly killed by the basic fireball spell with its many affix effects. Ever since obtaining the latest teleport affix, basically the moment an enemy showed itself, a fireball would explode on its body. But he still couldn't afford to be careless. Just now, he had almost been ambushed by the archer behind him. Looking at the sharp arrow that had landed by his feet, Mbai secretly warned himself. He currently belonged to the high attack, low defense type. His attacks could basically instantly kill every enemy in the dungeon. The problem was that although his physique growth attribute had increased tenfold, he still lacked any other defensive means. So if he got hit, he would still take damage. Once he got out, he'd buy a defensive skill book. Then, if he encountered defense-type affixes, he could add them to that skill. Mbai quietly made up his mind. Then he slowly pushed forward through the map, moving in fits and starts, staying alert for ambushes from the shadows, while instantly killing those obvious enemies one by one. After encountering about 17 or 18 waves of enemies, nearly 2 hours had already passed. This map was truly not small, but he had finally reached the deepest part of the tomb, a burial chamber containing a massive coffin. The moment he walked in, the coffin lid was automatically flung open. With a boom, it slammed into the wall on the right and shattered to pieces. The huge figure lying inside also suddenly sat up, threw back its head, and let out a furious roar. Another one dares disturb my slumber. Deserves death. This enemy was similar to the previous Black Iron Knights. Also a humanoid monster, but several times taller, standing a full 7 or 8 meters high. Its entire body was covered in heavy black armor, with only its eyes exposed, glowing with bloodthirsty red light. After blasting open the coffin, it grabbed the gigantic iron hammer set beside it with both hands. One look was enough to tell it was not to be trifled with. Boss Black Iron Giant King LV7. Appraisal required. A boss unit? This was the first time Mbai had encountered a unit of this rank. Previously, the highest he had run into were elites. Mbai was not too surprised that he couldn't see its information. It had already been explained in class before, without any skills, relying only on the visual information provided by the classholder interface. At most, you can only see elite-level targets, and they can't be more than 3 levels higher than yourself. As for bosses or information on other class users, you can only see it with appraisal. Kill. The roar came again, accompanied by a heavy metallic sound, as the Black Iron Giant King raised its giant hammer and slowly moved in Mbai's direction. That sense of oppression was hundreds of times stronger than even the overwhelming insect swarm. On top of that, Mbai noticed that the tomb chamber door behind him had somehow automatically closed. In this cramped space, trying to dodge the Giant King's wide area attacks was clearly an extreme test of movement technique. However, Mbai took a deep breath and suppressed some of his nervousness. Because he had no movement skills, Mbai did not run around recklessly. Instead, he stayed where he was and directly cast Fireball. He also used teleportation to make the fireball explode right in front of the Black Iron Giant King's eyes. Boom. Minus 6,977. Flames instantly engulfed the Black Iron Giant King, but unlike before, this was the first time Anbai had failed to instantly kill an enemy with a single fireball. However, the powerful explosion also blasted the Black Iron Giant King off balance, forcing its whole body to stagger back several steps. Tui. Damn. The first time he got injured was actually from being caught in the blast of his own skill. On the other side, Anbai also emerged from the firelight looking somewhat bedraggled. This tomb chamber was too small. There was no way to escape the explosion's range. This wasn't a game. There was no such thing as friendly fire immunity. He couldn't even completely negate the effects of his own skills. At most, with deliberate control, he could only reduce part of the damage. Damn it, die! The Black Iron Giant King swung its giant hammer once again, trying to charge over. Naturally, Anbai wasn't going to give it the chance, and detonated another fireball instantly. At the same time, this time he tried to suppress the fireball's explosive effect. The huge blast and firelight once again covered the entire tomb chamber. But this time Anbai felt much better. Sure enough, under Anbai's control, this explosion only covered a range of about 3 meters. Although the power weakened slightly, at least it wouldn't affect Anbai himself. Furious, the Black Iron Giant King suddenly slammed its giant hammer down. Looking at the floor tiles shattered into dust and that huge pit, Anbai knew just how terrifying this boss monster's attack power was, far beyond what elite monsters could achieve. Seizing the opportunity, Anbai cast another fireball. This time his control was even more precise, blasting a range of nearly 8 meters, because he was about 8 meters away from the monster. Boom. Minus 5,777. Minus 5,858. Minus 6,075. Basic fireball proficiency increased, base damage plus 10. With repeated, precisely controlled casting, his skill proficiency improved faster. So this can actually raise proficiency faster. He had heard that universities even had instructors specializing in the precise use of skills, able to work wonders with even a minor skill. After that, Anbai released Fireball another 6 or 7 times in quick succession. The Black Iron Giant King was blasted until its armor completely shattered and the red glow in its eyes dimmed. And after letting out a roar and a wail, it crashed to the ground and did not get up again. Successfully killed Boss Class Unit Black Iron Giant King LV7. Congratulations on clearing the Level 5 Dungeon Black Iron King's Tomb on Purgatory difficulty. Obtained a large amount of experience. Purple Dungeon Treasure, Chest X1. Detected that this clear is the first direct kill of the Black Iron Giant King on Purgatory difficulty. Obtained Hidden Reward Black Iron Great Shield, Purple Equipment. Congratulations, you have reached Level 8, current EXP 8%. Triggered Basic Class Passive. All attributes plus 10, Fire Affinity plus 10. Triggered Mage Beginner Passive, Spirit plus 6. You have gained 1 entry draw opportunity. Huh, a hidden reward? Anbai glanced at the clear rewards from this run and didn't expect there to be an extra gain. And it was even a shield-type equipment of purple quality. Unfortunately, it didn't suit him. Opening the Purple Dungeon Treasure Chest, you obtain Nutrient Potion X5, White Consumable, Black Iron Stone X500, White Material. Mount Pet Contract, Purple Item. Oh? A Mount Pet Contract? This was quite a highly valuable item. Seeing that, aside from materials, this item had come out of the chest, Anbai also smiled. With a Mount Pet Contract, he could choose a pet contract of up to purple quality as his mount pet. Although he himself was neither a beast tamer nor a summoner, having a mount pet for traveling or assisting in battle was still pretty good. He could go check the pet market when he had time to see if there was anything suitable. However, Shangjiang City wasn't known for summoned beasts. He had heard that there were more summoners over in Jizan City. After Anbai packed up the spoils, he drew a new affix again. Consumed 1 chance, drawing a golden affix. Draw successful. Congratulations, you obtained the golden legendary skill affix. Tenfold. Holy shit. Haha. This time it didn't go off target, and he hit another duplicate. Duplicate affix detected. 1 extra draw chance granted. Drawing now. Sure enough, the system once again gave him an extra chance for free. Draw successful. Congratulations, you obtained the golden legendary skill affix. Red Lotus. Without hesitation, Anbai directly gave that tenfold affix to the growth passive basic class again first. Actually, he had been considering whether to give it to Mage Novice, so that leveling up's plus 3 spirit could become plus 30. But after looking at the stacked explosion affix, he had an extra guess. So he decided to put the duplicate Tenfold on the same skill after all. Basic class, Tenfold *2. Every level up grants +1 to all attributes, x30. Fire affinity +10. Sure enough, that's how it worked. The effect of duplicate affixes was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, but would be even greater. From this moment on, the gains he would get from every level up afterward would be even greater. Thinking of this, Mbai impatiently opened his status panel to take a look. Name, Mbai level, 8, 8%, class, spell apprentice physique, 65, +10, agility, 64, +10, spirit, 89, +10, elemental affinity, fire 20 equipment, number 81 Inferno Walker, golden badge, class skills, basic fireball LV3, explosion *2, no cooldown, no wind up, corpse explosion, blink, other skills, none class passives, basic class, Tenfold *2, flame, mage novice affix system, 0 draws available, and used, red Lotus. If all attributes increase by 30 points on the next level up, then spirit would steadily break 100, and physique and agility would be close as well. Once he reached level 10, all 3 basic attributes would exceed 100 points, and that would trigger the Inferno Walker badge, adding another 100 points to all attributes, directly doubling all attributes. Level 10 is a point of improvement for every class, but for Mbai, the improvement he would get upon reaching level 10 would definitely be unprecedented. There was still one more affix. Red Lotus. Judging by the name, it should be Red Lotus Flame, right? This was a flame of extremely high quality. Any skill that could use Red Lotus Flame was at least a 4th tier skill. Even an Ice Mage, a class that starts at the 3rd tier, could not master it. Mbai didn't think much more and made his decision that basic Fireball LV3, omitted. Red Lotus changes the fire element into Red Lotus Flame. Base power increased tenfold. 100% inflicts an unavoidable burning effect for at least 30 seconds, dealing burning damage equal to 1% of this instance's damage per second. Hiss! What powerful Red Lotus Flame! It directly increased the base damage of my fireball tenfold. In that case, the explosion damage affected by the base damage also increased 30-fold to 300-fold. This means that within the core blast radius, it could even deal 80 to 90,000 damage. Besides that, after the explosion, there is also continuous burning, and it cannot be immunized against. This means that no matter how high the resistance is, or even priest's purification skills, they won't be able to get rid of it. At most, they can reduce the burning duration, but at the very least, it will still last 30 seconds. However, Mbai had originally planned to leave the city tomorrow and head to the real wilderness anyway. After all, the dungeon hall only has level 5 dungeons, and the next level requires level 10 to unlock, which he still can't enter. Right now, the returns from farming level 5 dungeons are far inferior to grinding monsters in the wilderness. After coming out of the dungeon, Mbai stretched out both arms and gave a lazy stretch. Before he knew it, he had been grinding hard for an entire day. As for reaching level 8 in just one day, Mbai himself was very satisfied with that efficiency. At least based on the information he had learned here in Shanjiang City, absolutely no one could match his efficiency. I'll go buy 2 skill books and pick up some supplies while I'm at it. Tomorrow I'll leave the city. Oh right, speaking of money for buying books, Mbai suddenly remembered that he seemed to have started a bet. He had been so busy farming dungeons earlier that he completely forgot about it. After clearing the first one, he never even asked the other party for the money, and just kept clearing one after another until now. Could he have run off with the money? Mbai slapped his forehead. If the other party really had run off, it would actually be hard for him to cause trouble for him. For one thing, aside from knowing the other party's name, he knew nothing else, and had no idea whether he had actually opened the betting pool or not, nor did he know how much had been won. Another reason was naturally that although he had bluffed the other party earlier, in reality he was just a lone individual with no background and no power, and really had no way to go collect a debt. Haha, little brotherin, you're finally out. Just as he was worrying and returning to the hall, a huge figure quickly followed up from behind. Wasn't it Zhao Ruetian, the very one who had supposedly absconded with the money? Brother Zhao, you're still here? By the way, why are you calling me little brotherin? I'm younger than you. Mbai gave an awkward greeting that left people somewhat speechless. Sure enough, the corner of Zhao Ruetian's mouth twitched subtly, but it was quickly overtaken by his excitement. Little brotherin, you're amazing. You cleared all 5 dungeons in just one afternoon, and all of them were Inferno difficulty. You even broke every single record. Little brotherin really is a rising star. How could someone this awesome be the younger brother? It's fine, we'll each address the other our own way. You call me Brother Zhao, and I'll call you Little Brotherin. Zhao Ruetian indicated that he absolutely did not dare call the young master of some hidden great family his little brother. By the way, this is the money won from today's betting pool, a total of 1.98 million, all on this card. Check it over. As he spoke, Zhao Ruetian handed an anonymous funds card to Enbai. How much? The amount made Enbai cry out in surprise instinctively. At most, he had expected to win only 1 or 200,000, but it had nearly reached 2 million. What a windfall. Hee, little brotherin, you don't know this, but actually the first dungeon only won about 600,000. But afterward, didn't you keep farming dungeons? So I kept opening betting pools. But I didn't dare make the condition as simple as just clearing them. So I set it as betting on whether you could break the record. Although your performance in the first dungeon shocked quite a few people, most people either thought it was luck or thought you just happened to counter that dungeon, and that's why it went so smoothly. So they still followed and placed bets, and I opened 4 more rounds in a row. Although by the last 2 dungeons some people finally bet on you to win, I also knew that by then there would definitely be people who believed in your strength, so I changed the odds. It wasn't 1 to 10 anymore, only 1 to 1.1. All in all, that's how I won that much. Zhao Ruetian smiled shrewdly. Although Enbai had only made an agreement with him about the first round of betting, logically speaking, he could have kept the winnings from the later rounds for himself. But he wasn't a short-sighted person. Such a big shot. Compared to making money, earning goodwill was obviously more important. Although he couldn't figure out why a mage from a prestigious family would care about such a small amount of money. Maybe this was just their hobby. All right, thanks, Brother Zhao. Take this as compensation for your hard work. After all, I kept you busy watching things all day, so you didn't have time to take jobs and make money. Enbai transferred 1.8 million from the funds card to his own account, leaving the remaining 180,000 for Zhao Ruetian. He wasn't some cold-hearted person either. Since the man had helped him, he naturally had to show some gratitude. Wow, that's so much. How can I accept this? Zhao Ruetian took the funds card and burst into laughter. This was quite a substantial sum for him as well. But then he put on a more serious expression, leaned in close, and whispered, "By the way, little brotherin, look at that guy over there. Of these nearly 2 million, at least half was lost by him. So you might want to be careful." Enbai followed Zhao Ruetian's gaze and looked over. In the corner sat a gloomy-faced man, pouring mug after mug of ale down his throat. One look was enough to tell he was in a bad mood after losing money and was drinking to drown his sorrows. Just as Enbai was about to ask about the man's background, Zhao Ruetian had already taken the initiative to introduce him. He's Zhang Lei from the Shadow Assassin Guild, a level 20 assassin. The Shadow Assassin Guild and the Brotherhood I'm in don't exactly get along. When he saw me taking bets here today, and on something this outrageous, he immediately placed a huge bet intending to make a killing off me. And he placed bets on all 4 rounds in a row, thinking he could win it all back in one go and mock me while he was at it. But well, there's no need to say more about the result. Naturally, he lost so badly he didn't even have his underwear left. But don't worry, little brotherin. Whether it's the Shadow Assassin Guild or our Brotherhood, we're only somewhat intimidating to ordinary people. You're a dignified scion of the Graydon family, so you naturally don't need to be afraid of him. I'm just giving you a heads up." Enbai nodded and once again said that if there was anything good next time, he would definitely look after Brother Zhao. Then the 2 men, each calling the other brother, went their separate ways.